Yo, what's going on, Bexio? Back in today, we have a brand new video talking about Apple with the news they dropped during their earnings, announcing a 4-to-1 stock split and what the breakdowns of that's going to mean for everything. And should you buy Apple stock right now at $420 something that it is if they're going to do this split. So basically, a 4-to-1 stock split means that for every stock you have, every one you have, you're going to get 3 to total 4 stocks. So if you had 1 share of Apple, you would have 4 shares at the time of the split, and 2 would be 8, 3 would be 12, and so on and so forth. It would just basically multiply by 4, but meaning you would get 3 shares for every 1 that you hold. And along with this means that the share price of Apple is going to come down divided by 4. So right now, if the share price is a little over 400, we'll take 400 as a baseline, it would come down to $100 a share, and then at that point would start trading at $100 a share, and you would have the same monetary value as you did before, but you'd have more shares in your possession. So with all that being said, a lot of people are indecisive on whether they should buy Apple now or buy Apple at the split, or should they do it now, wait, and what should they do, and how should they do it, and nobody knows what's going on. But looking at Apple and looking at all the analysts' thoughts and how they say that Apple could run up off of this news to $500, this is the way I break it down, looking at the stock price. So we can look right here on Robinhood, and you can see this is Apple stock trading for $427 a share right now before this split. The split is going to happen on August 24th. So any shares you have, including anything that you buy up to August 24th, will be included in the 4-to-1 split, and then it will start trading at the split levels on August 31st. If I read all of that correctly in the Apple's earnings, that's what everybody's saying. So those are the dates to look out for and be aware of. But there's a bunch of analysts and a bunch of people saying Apple could ride this news to $500 before the split happens. So if that is to be true, and you see Apple's $427, let's round it to $430, $500 would be a $70 gain, and that would mean any share you bought if you bought a share right now at $430, we're going to round up, and it went to $500 before the split, you would have made $70 on that share and then split it. So when people are thinking about buying Apple and they're saying, I'll buy when it splits, the problem you're running into is if it runs up to $500 and you could have bought in at $427, if you want to get a full share, then you would have lost out on $70 of the share gains there. You would have lost out on the $70 gains if it runs to $500. So that's the problem you run into, because instead of being, if it's $400 and the split would bring it to $100 a share, and then you buy in then, if that was the case and it was going to be $400 and then come down to $100 and there'd be no in between, then it would be fine to do whichever way you want, whenever you want to invest into Apple. But since that's not how the world works, we're looking at Apple running to $500, which instead of splitting to $100 would bring it to split to $125. So meaning that price, instead of being $100, it'll be $125. And if you bought in now, like I said, so if you bought 10 shares right now of Apple, that would cost you $4,300. Say it's $430. We'll say it costs $4,300 for 10 shares. And you could say that's a ton of money for 10 shares, but to get the same amount of value when the split happens, you're going to have to buy 40 shares for $4,300. It's not going to change. The big problem with this is, like I've said, if it runs up to $500, that $4,300 turns into being worth $5,000, and then you get the 4 shares on top of that once the split happens. So you make $700, then it splits to $125, and then in that case you'd buy 40 shares at $125, and that would be $5,000. I should have known that. I don't know why you use a calculator, but that would be $5,000 that you need up front to get the same value out of the $4,300 that you would have got investing now, instead of waiting for maybe a run-up and then the split to happen. So that is my opinion on the Apple split here. I love seeing that Apple is sticking to its roots and its original business plan of being affordable to the people, you know, making sure their shares price don't go crazy like Tesla's 1,500, Amazon over 3,000. People look at that and don't even think about investing investing a full share, buying a full share, because that would mean $3,000 for Amazon, and people see that and think that is a ton of money. But if you look at Apple and you look at their new split, they go to $100. It's a lot easier to buy $100 of a share than to buy even $400 of Apple before the split. So that's the ideas behind Apple splitting. They've always wanted to be affordable to the people, making sure that the average person has a chance to invest in Apple if they would want to choose to. So we can talk about Apple's earnings report that they did do. This is when they announced their 4-to-1 split, was during their earnings, and they absolutely smashed earnings. They're holding like $100 billion in cash and cash equivalents, and they've just ramped up their production, and without having a new iPhone released, is kind of crazy to see that they actually did better sales now, or this last quarter, compared to the quarter before, which is absolutely kind of ridiculous considering the world we're in right now, and they're not having any physical stores open too much, and having no new iPhone to release. So it's going to be insane to see the next quarter, when the iPhone does get released, how that impacts their earnings and how much more money they can make. But for now, I mean, they blew it out of the park. They got $100 billion in cash and cash equivalents. They made like $60 billion in products and growth and stuff like that. So you can break down all their sectors. It's on Apple's website. You can look at their earnings report, and it breaks down everything for you if you're interested in that. But you just know they blew it out of the park and then announced this 4-to-1 share split, which is just going to be great. And I can't wait to get my extra 3 shares of Apple per 1 share that I have. And I know that it's not going to be huge, but Apple's one of those companies that, I mean, they just basically print money. So having more shares of it is always going to be better. Even though when this split happens, I think a lot of people don't realize is it's going to be harder to move the price. It's going to take more money to move Apple's price up or down, because they're going to have more outstanding shares and things like that. So just be wary of that. But I mean, it's Apple, so they're very consistent with making money. They basically print it, and all of their services, things of their software and service they're developing, are taking off and starting to earn more money for them. So I think the sky is the limit with this company. And maybe in a few years we could be back to $400 or $500 a share and be talking about another Apple stock split. Guys, let me know what you guys think of this news of a 4-to-1 stock split for Apple. Are you hyped about it? Do you have any Apple stock to partake in this? And if you don't, are you going to buy Apple or wait for the split to happen? So guys, as always, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'll see you guys in my next video.